The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the anti-Christ of professional wrestling.
David can't run the world title.
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass.
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat. Goldberg steered Russo on the table.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Today I have a very special guest. I'm going to be honest with you. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances because I've never met her before. But I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of hers. You'll know her from America's Next Top Model, The Surreal Life, My Fair Brady. She's done a ton of TV work. But the reason why she's here today is because she was a friend of, as you know, a very close and dear friend of mine. I'm talking about China. And I'm talking about America's Next Top Model, Adrianne Curry. Adrianne, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. Just living life. Beautiful day in LA. Cleaning, all the stuff we love to do. Literally, before I logged on with you, I cleaned the toilets in my house.
Adrianne, I got to tell you something. Obviously, this is the first time we're meeting. And like I said, I wish it was under better circumstances, but I am glad that I'm getting to meet you. Because you know what I always liked about you, Adrianne? I got to be honest with you. And I literally have watched, all 3 of those shows. I mean, literally have watched.
I'm sorry.
No, but you know what I always loved about you? You know what came across to me with you? You were just that girl that you wanted to hang out with in high school. Not because obviously you're beautiful, but just the girl you want to hang out in high school. That's just a ton of fun to be around. I mean, that's how you came across in everything you did. You have a magnificent personality. And I got to be honest with you, as gorgeous as you are, that's what attracted me to you.
I was not. It's funny because I was just in my hometown, unfortunately, for a funeral of a childhood friend. And everyone there was just like, your personality was always so huge. We knew you were bigger than this place. They're like, but you were ugly as fuck when you were younger. I was not cute. Shit was not put together well. The 90s kind of hid any body I had with baggy 9-inch nail shirts and jeans. So, I mean, I might have been a lot of fun, but I definitely wasn't getting asked out on any dates.
Does that personality now, I know you're from, you say Joliet, Illinois, correct?
Yeah, Joliet, Jake, and Elwood Blues.
Yeah, now, does that have anything to do with the personality? I would think that's probably a very small town, a very close-knit community. Quite honestly, you probably stuck out like a sore thumb if you had that kind of personality.
It's a small town, but it's a rough town. Like if you are from Chicago and you mention you're from Joliet, most people lie and say they're from Chicago because we have 2 maximum security prisons, a juvenile delinquent center, the state police station. We're just kind of a pile of shit. And everyone literally lives at bars, talks shit. It's very rough and tumble. Very, I guess, unfiltered. People just tell it how it is. So there's a lot of big personalities from there. Some of them are a little meaner, but I would say it's very common to have people with loose tongues.
Yeah.
From that.
Well, I got to tell you, what I enjoyed the most, the season of My Fair Brady, when you brought your ex-husband home and he got to meet the family. I mean, that to me really gave us a flavor of who you are. I really enjoyed that the most.
You know, my family is the most important thing in the world to me. So, you know, if you're going to marry me, you're going to meet him. That, you know, it's funny because even when we were divorcing, he was like, you know what I'm going to miss the most? I'm like, what? It's like your whole family. I'm like, yep. I'm like, that's all you had to do. Be a little bit of a family. But he's a bachelor, forever bachelor. Let him go bachelor.
I have to ask you this about you, and I'm not going to listen. I would love to sit here and talk to you about your whole career, but this is about Joni. We're going to talk about, but I got to ask you one thing, Adrianne. I got to ask you one thing. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm about the same age as Christopher Knight, and those of you who don't know, Christopher Knight was a Peter Brady. Adrianne met him on The Surreal Life. They got married. They went on to have their show, My Fair Brady. They've since been divorced. But I got to tell you, Adrianne, I'm 55 years old. And as soon as I started watching My Fair Brady, I could tell Christopher Knight was a stick in the mud like yours truly, me. We're the same age, and I saw your personality, and I was like, this is not, I don't think this is. Now,
I need someone to ground me, you know? And I was hoping it was going to be him. Like, I like a more rounded, grounded guy. I mean, it's just, I was that kid when I was 13 watching From Dusk Till Dawn going, George Clooney. Everyone's like, he's old. I'm like, he's perfect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I like people who have their lives together more. Everyone always said I was an old soul.
Yeah.
I really wanted that to work out. We tried it for 7 years, but you know, some people are just like, I know I'm designed to be married and taking care of the home and my husband. I'm that kind of girl, and he's more designed to have fun, and that's fine. But we just didn't work with each other because of that.
Yeah. Well, Adrianne, let's talk about, and I'm so glad I got to hook up with you. Listen, my relationship with Joni goes all the way back, probably to 1995, 1996. I was the head writer, and I was the producer at the WWE. I saw Joni first day on the job. I absolutely fell in love with her. And our relationship really grew throughout the years. I mean, it was really all business when we worked together at the WWE, but it was the circumstances with, you know, how she left and what happened that kind of brought her and I close, because I was really, really concerned about her at that point in her life. And, you know, whereas it's funny, Adrianne, you know, everybody, they tend to kiss up to the WWE because, you know, they want to work there. They want to get hired there. They want to get on the good side of the family. Me, I didn't care about any of that. I knew Joni Lauer's heart, and my heart bled for her. And I know, you know, what happened to her. And Joni came on my show, and she said it better than anybody. She said, Vince, you know, Hunter and Stephanie, they fell in love. People fall in love. You can't prevent that. But it was what they did to her afterwards that really upset me. It wasn't the fact that Hunter and Stephanie fell in love, whether they had an affair behind Joni's back or not. That's neither here nor there. It's the way they treated her afterwards.
It was like a reversal of hell hath no fury of a woman scorned. You would think that would have been China or Joni's position to be such a butthole about it, but it was them, which is
and Adrianne, to me, it was like, it was so freaking unnecessary. And it was like, you know, are you kidding me? The fact that she lost her fiance, you know, thinking she's going to spend the rest of her life with him, then she loses her job, which kind of makes sense. The three of them probably couldn't work together, but then to strip her of her name, it's like, I'm sitting there, I'm saying, are these human beings? How can you do this to one person? And that's when I really, really became concerned with what was going to happen to her going forward. Now, you met her, you know, I would guess that first day on the
few years after the fallout of the nuclear war, you know.
Now, let me ask you this, Adrianne. When you met her on the Surreal Life, did you know anything about any of that, any of her background or anything?
Oh yeah. It's funny. Growing up, I wasn't bad, but I used to just sit around a garage smoking weed with my friends, and the thing that they had all over the walls were posters of China and Sable and this and like. I'm Midwestern. That's like their thing is wrestling. And I always like to fancy myself, a strong chick. So when I met her, I was like, oh shit, because you don't know who you're going to move in with. And all I could think of is all my friends are going to be jealous as fuck. I'm like living in here with China, the ninth wonder, So yeah, I probably knew her better than everyone else in there except for Marcus Schakenberg, the male supermodel. But that's only because we're in the same, business.
Yeah. Now, I got to be honest with you, Adrianne. The first time I saw China on that show, she was parading around in the skimpiest bikini I think I've ever seen any human being wear, and she was acting loco. Now, you have to understand where I sit. I've spent my whole life working with wrestlers. And with wrestlers, Adrianne, I don't know if it's like this in your business. Maybe it is. But with wrestlers, when that camera's on, they start working. So there was a part of me when I first saw Joni, I was like, holy crap, she's in trouble. But there was the other part of me that's saying, it's okay, she's working the camera. Once you started to get to know her and had a few conversations with her, what was the Joni that you saw at the beginning?
Well, gosh, obviously, all of Hollywood is insane. So I met her and I was like, oh, I actually thought she was the closest to my age. I believe she was like 34, 35 at the time. I was 22. And there were so many bars in the house and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, this is the person that I'm probably going to identify the most with and have the most fun with, because everyone else is either in their 40s or 50s, or DeBrat, who's a rapper who kind of didn't like any of us. So, it's funny because at that point, I had already been through like 10 years of counseling. I had gone through all my shit in my past and had cleaned up off drugs and all this stuff. And I almost identified immediately that something was hurting her. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just because I've sat in so many group therapy sessions. So, the first day or two was kind of like, okay, what's for camera and what's for not? Because the way I've always operated is I just go in as me. That way I don't have to remember something or, oops, I fucked up on something I was portraying. Like, this is me.
Right.
I've calmed down substantially since then. I've grown up, but, I noticed she was drinking a lot, and she and I started talking, and that's when like little tidbits of truth would come out. Like I told her, you know what, my boyfriend of 5 years growing up that I thought I was going to marry, the second I won top model, dumped my ass. And she's like, oh, I know how that goes, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So through her mouth, because I wasn't privy at the time of why she left, wrestling and all that stuff. But I started picking up tidbits that her heart had been really, really broken. And I think at that time, that was 2005, that was only a few years afterwards. So I was still smarting from my breakup, in 2003, and she was still smarting from hers, which I believe was in 2001.
Yeah, around that.
Yeah. So, I mean, those things can have huge effects on your life, especially if that person was really important to your heart. So I kind of started identifying with her more and spending more time with her, just because we had that certain like, well, we're here to drink a lot and fuck everyone because our hearts hurt.
Right. Well, Adrianne, let me ask you this, because listen, it's like the professional wrestler, they're a certain animal. and stuff is instilled in them. And it's just unbelievable because they all come out of the same mold. And one of the things that is really instilled in them is they keep everything inside. The term you use in wrestling is kayfabe. If there's an emotional problem, if there's a drug problem, if there's an alcohol problem, whatever the case may be, they don't share it with anybody. They keep all that in themselves. Now, in these conversations you're starting to have with her, do you feel her wanting to, talk about it and open up to you? Or did you find that you kind of had to pull these things from her because based on your experience with counseling, you knew there was some problems there?
Oh yeah, no, dude. When you're slamming the booze and running around the way she was, I'm like, especially now I've been to so many conventions doing autographs and stuff. Joni taught me what to expect from the wrestlers that would be surrounding my table.
Right.
I know they're cool when the camera's not looking and you can get, in there a little bit. And then the second it swings around, I mean, they're showmen.
Right.
That's what they do. But I think, unfortunately, her moments of vulnerability was, when we were drunk in the jacuzzi late at night when there was less cameras and, less of a reason for her to be her heightened self. But I would really say that it was when Sean Expat came that.
Yeah, I got to tell you this, and we were going to talk about that, but I'm telling you, if anybody goes back and watches it, when he shows up, she can't hide the emotion. I mean, You could tell she was greatly affected when he showed up. So yeah, please tell me about that.
It was okay, he walks in and I can see their dynamic. I can see her just kind of crumbling, why are you here? He's trying to be all nice. And the first thing that popped in my mind is he's using her to get on camera. I just felt it. The second thing that popped in my mind is when they were outside, I could hear them fighting. So then I started rallying the troops and I'm like, you guys, I just have a feeling Joni's not been friends with many women. And, I said, I'm just going to throw a long shot here and guess she probably had problems with her mom and shit. She probably doesn't expect anyone to give a fuck. Mm-hmm. But why don't we go out there and tell this asshole to leave? Because I'm fucking tired of it. This isn't going to be days of our lives for him to expose her in that way, because I could see her crying and shit. I'm like, I know she doesn't want to look like this on some stupid ass show.
But Adrianne,
I
I have to ask you this because I don't know. I have some idea of how reality TV works. I mean, obviously, but so was he brought in by the producers without her knowledge?
They were talking on the phone, right? I think he contacted the producers. And the producers were cool. But the producers were the ones that walked in when I was like, we need to break this up. And they were like, you know what? We agree with Adrianne. We think things are getting volatile out there. We have a schedule, things we're supposed to do tomorrow. And they could hear him on mic. I think he was asking her to leave with him. And they're like, fuck that. We paid her. She's got to come here and do her thing. So I think they're trying to.
Did she have no idea he was showing up?
I don't think she did, but none of us did.
Right.
There was a knock on the door and he walked. And
I'll never forget, he had the fishnet shirt on. Remember? It was black and it was fishnet. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I could tell just the look on her face. You could tell something just changed here with her. So, so you hear an argument start. You're going to be the woman that goes out to her aid. What happens?
Yeah, she's pretty much just crying and crying. He's talking. And I'm sorry, I eavesdropped because I was just like, what the fuck's going on? And from what I gathered, he was really horrible to her before she came. And I was kind of gathering that there might have been a little jealousy that she was on a show and he wasn't, and that he wanted her to come home with him. And we were supposed to film some movie thing the next day. So I go out there and I mean, he's just acting like a real asshole. So I dubbed him Captain Douchebag, which I do believe I called him a few times, but the one and only time DeBrat actually rose up to be awesome. It was me, DeBrat, and Jane Weedland that kind of went out there like, get the F out here. It was interesting to me that none of the men seemed
interesting
to really want to come out there and man up.
Right.
You know, I think Marcus Schakenberg did eventually. I know dudes like to stay out of things, but I don't know. I just had this sense that that was an abusive relationship. So I was like, you need to fucking leave. Then the producers came in, which they didn't show that. They're like, you need to fucking leave. We finally get him to go out the door. I think she convinced him that she was going to leave with him. And we barred the door. I remember we were putting all these brooms. It was like a double door. We were putting all these brooms within the handle. We also called the police. And we went to talk her down and convince her not to go with him. And in doing so, you know, she was breaking down. I remember I kicked my leg up against the wall to try to stop the film crew from coming in. Because I'm like, you know, enough. You know, leave her the fuck alone and let's figure this out without you guys exploiting whatever this like deep-seated issue is. Because, I mean, I know I would feel horrible if that was me. So I remember her telling us, she's like, I've never had women like, you know, go to bat like this for me. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to let some asshole come on some show and abuse you. I'm like, I could already tell by then that she was a sweet kitten that was just really hurt and trying to deal with it in her own way. And I could tell whoever that asshole was someone taking advantage of a very vulnerable and already hurt woman. So as they were fighting and stuff, I remember I started telling the men, I'm like, I know Joni has a bag of pills. I know it. We got to find this bag of pills. So luckily they didn't show very much of this on TV.
Adrianne, why do you think that? Do you think that based on your experience? Because, you know, you said she was drinking a lot. How would you know? See, Adrianne, this is the problem I always have. I'm going to be honest with you, and this is important that you know this. Thank God I've never drank. I've never been addicted to pills, but I lived in a world where everybody was.
Yeah. So yes, you did.
Yes, I did. So basically, when I came across a wrestler that was pilled up, number one, even though I thought he was pilled up, I could never really accuse him of that because having never been pilled up, I really didn't know. And number two, they always deny it. I mean, they're absolutely in denial. So like you mentioned, she drank a lot, and I witnessed China drinking a lot. But did the pills come in her behavior or in her behavior? What's different from an alcoholic and all of a sudden pills are mixed into that you would know?
I'm a former opioid addict. So I did a lot of heroin and perks and Red Rock opium and stuff in my teen years. I also did cocaine. I did Vicodin, like you name it, I was doing it. Like I said, I went through a lot of counseling because I went through some shit when I was a kid. And then when I was a teen, I was trying to cope with it. It's because of that I was telling everyone, okay, when you drink, that's fine. But when you have one or two drinks and it affects you like that, then you have something else going through your system. And there were days that she was like crazy hyper. And I was wondering, okay, is she on an upper? And there were days where she was like really low, like almost crawling, like with no energy. And I'm like, I wonder if she's on an opioid. And, you know, unfortunately, I've lost a lot of friends, you know, that I grew up with to overdoses and stuff. So I've got a lot of experience in this, and I just knew she had it. So we looked through her stuff, and lo and behold, there it was, big old bag. Most of them all prescriptions in her name. Now, I didn't want to go digging in there because at that point I was only 2 years clean. And it's so funny because I remember Chris Knight handed it to me. He's like, you need, you know, to hide this. And I'm just standing there and I'm like not wanting to admit on camera, like, this is a huge fucking problem for me.
Yeah, right. God, man.
You guys just gave me this big bag of fun. Shit.
Jeez.
So I think I hid it in our bedroom because I stayed in the guys' bedroom with Marcus Schakenberg and Chris Knight, and I threw it into the closet. I mean, eventually she freaked out like a day or two later, like, where the fuck is my bag? And I was just like, dude, you don't need this shit in your life. Like, she's smart. She's caring.
Brilliant. Yep.
Deep She's not made for this town. Like, she's too soft and too nice for this shit pit that I like to call LA, full of snakes and vipers and sharks that are born swimming. You know, she told me, yeah, I know. She was always in denial over that. And all the years that we were friends, like, she would sober up, and us rallying around her gave her a good 2 days where she was like, okay, I'm focused. And I was like, hello, I love this China. She's great.
Right.
But, you know, Joni didn't know moderation with things because she was hurting. And I don't think she properly dealt with it, you know, and it really fucking sucks because, I mean, I'm not going to say I was shocked when I heard the news, but I was like, God damn it. You know, of all the friends I've had that have suffered from addiction, she was one I was really hoping would pull through, get herself out of the life choices she had made for herself, build a new life, and like come out with that book like, hey, bitches, look what I did. Like, I'm epic now. And I have this like smear on my life that I'm going to talk about and teach others with. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So Adrianne, at that point, do you give her the bag back? I mean, you know,
no, she found it. Let me tell you about addiction. You cannot hide drugs from a drug addict. They will find it. And because she knew like who was the one that was like probably the most concerned was me and Jane. So she knew DeMott didn't have it. Well, if it was like me and Jane was always relying on me to do things, and then I'm on that side of the room. I probably should have hit it better, but there was so much shit going on with like police being called and trying to keep her in the house. And then frankly, after I threw it in that top drawer, I did not open it again because I was like, I don't want to look at bills.
Yeah, I understand. Now, did the producers know there was a problem with her?
I mean, at this point, we're all kind of learning it together.
Right.
Obviously, they would always intervene. Joni, are you okay? Joni, have you taken anything besides just sitting here drinking tequila? You know, stuff like that. Like, they definitely didn't want anything bad to happen to her, especially on their watch. But, you know, you cannot force someone to make the right decisions. You can try to push them towards it. But I would say from that night on, except for the last night, I think she was so upset that we were all going to leave this like little bubble that we were living in of friends that she popped some pills and drank. That's my guess, because she was crazy that night. I was wasted, but I could still tell she was crazy.
Now, Adrianne, let me ask you this again. The fact that, you know, you went through counseling at a very early age and, you know, you had experience with this. When you talk about, you know, you mentioned early on, there were some conversations in a hot tub. During those conversations, was there ever anything she said that like you could tell immediately, that's it? Like, that is the root of every issue this woman is having, because
losing her career. That was it. That high where she felt like she was finally belonged somewhere and was doing her thing, and then boom, it was gone. That fucked her up. That fucked her up so bad, and she never recovered from it. And it just hurts me for her because, you know, I've suffered similar things, maybe not on that scale, but God, does it hurt when someone takes your shit and won't even give you the credit. I remember when we left The Surreal Life, I saw an episode. We went to the premiere all together, and she was there. And I remember hearing them, they had dubbed us saying China doll. I'm like, no one called her China doll. Yeah. And she's like, well, they had to like fix it all because of the lawsuit with my name. I'm like, oh yeah, because the producers kept asking. Because I asked her when I first met her, what do you prefer, Joni or China? She's like, we're on TV, bitch. It's China. I'm like, okay, I got you. I got you. We'll do that. But then they had like throughout the show, anytime someone said her name, it was like China doll. It sounded all weird because they had to like dub it in.
You know, let me ask you this though, Adrianne. what I hear what you're saying, and I get it. I get it completely. I mean, she was on top of the world. Everybody knew China. There was nobody like her when she was, hot in the WWE. Everybody knew her around the world.
She was everywhere.
She was everywhere. But Adrian, maybe I'm wrong about this. But one thing I could say about Joni, because listen, me spending 25 years around wrestlers, I can't even have a conversation with a normal person and tell you what that ego is like, because you wouldn't believe me. You wouldn't believe me if I told you what the ego of a wrestler is like. But yet, I never saw that in Joni. Would ego, though, have to be involved that she lost the job and she lost the fame and she lost the fortune, and now she's going down the wrong road? Would ego be involved in that?
Here's the thing. If she didn't lose her love, I don't think she would have taken it as hard. But because it was like this avalanche of like shit on her life, like it was everything she worked for and her heart just crushed her, right? I don't think it was an ego thing, because look, I know a lot of wrestlers, and I'm not talking crap, but yeah, there's huge egos involved. I mean, really, really big. And she never came across that way to me at all. At all. Like she is like a swan that went through that industry.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, she was. Adrianne, did Sean Waltman ever come back, or was that a one night only?
That was one night. I mean, I let him know. I was like, never want to talk to you again, blah, blah, blah. I think we were at a convention where he was there and someone mentioned, he said he'd like to. I'm like, nope. I'm like, don't want to ever see him again, just because that's all I had to know, is that he made her feel that way, that I was like, I just don't need anything to do with you.
Adrianne, I got to tell you, man, and this was maybe 2 years ago, if that. China was over in Japan, and we were contacting each other again, and she emailed me and she said to me, Vince, I've started more or less writing my memoirs. She goes, there's nobody in the world I could send them to but you, because she didn't want anybody to see them. Yeah. And she sent them to me, Adrianne, and the majority of it was, she talked a lot about her relationship with Hunter and, what the final breakdown was. But to my surprise, the bulk of the story was really her and Sean Waltman.
That was a very destructive, bad thing.
Oh, Adrianne, the emotion that Joni put on these pages brought me to tears, because I had no freaking idea. And I remember she called me and asked me about it, and I was so blindsided. I had no idea of the destructiveness of the relationship. And I said to her, you just have to keep on writing to get this out of your system. Forget about trying to sell it, a book deal. You have to get this out. But the pain in her words on those pages literally tore my heart from my chest. I had no idea.
It's funny. Maybe it's just women's intuition, but throughout my life, I've never met anyone as hurt as her. And then it even broke my heart more, because even though she was all hurt, she still had kindness to give to people. You know what I mean? Yeah. She did. I wanted to save her. I did. And boy, did I try. But, addiction is nothing but denial. And every time I would confront her, like, Joni, like I remember one time she needed weed, so I'm like, whatever, weed is like the lesser of all evils. I, up until a year ago, smoked weed for about 20 years. I had my card and everything. She had her card. She said she was too drunk, but she needed weed. Well, I couldn't make it, mainly due because I was scared of what I would find. So I sent my manager at the time, and he went with just a little bit, drop off to her, and it wasn't a good scene in there. And she and I kind of, I'm not going to say we got in a fight, but I was just like, dude, I had a feeling that that's what was going on. I'm really happy I didn't show up. I'm not going to like sit here and trash her. I'm not even going to reveal like what was going on. All I know is she had fallen off the wagon again. And it sucked because 2 weeks earlier we were on the red carpet with each other and she was so beautiful. So beautiful. And we spent like the night hanging out with each other and like making fun of people, like doing girl things. And I mean, I was just like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe she's like doing better. But she wasn't okay. She was not okay.
Adrianne, let me ask you this because something similar happened with me. We were keeping in contact while she was in Japan. And Adrianne, we were doing Skype and she was out of it. I mean, every time I spoke. Now, you can imagine how I felt. Here I am sitting in Colorado. She's in Japan. I know we got to get her out of there. The only way we're going to save her, we got to bring her home. But yet, I can't have a coherent conversation with her. Yeah. So how could you even make plans for her to come back home across the country when she can't even have a conversation with you? So somehow, some way, her manager, Anthony, was able to get her home. So now she's home. I had many conversations with her. She came on Skype when she moved into the new place. She was as clear as a whistle. That's what I heard. Yeah. I heard she was doing really, really well. And friends of mine on the convention circuit were like, dude, Joni's going to conventions. Yes. She's clear-headed, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to reach out to her, see if she wants to have lunch and stuff. Because, I mean, as much as I loved her, I couldn't let her be my fall. Because, look, once an addict, always an addict. It's there. I can't be around it that much, or I will be like, well, what's one night? You know, and I don't want to go there. And Adrianne, I saw her in November. We worked the convention together. Adrianne, when I tell you glowing. Adrianne, I swear it must have been like, this is November. I'd say January. I get a voicemail. She's out of it. And now I get like 3 or 4 voicemails. I can't believe it. I'm like where you were on the red carpet. I'm thinking it's over. It's behind her. Now it's the same Joni that was in Japan. My heart was ripped out of I could not believe it. But Adrianne, I have to ask you this. You were an addict. You were addicted to a lot of things. You told us. But Adrianne, I guess you got to the point where you wanted to help yourself. Like you knew. It's like I looked in the mirror and I was disgusted with what I saw. And it's funny because Dr. Drew was like, that's the turning point when you can look in the mirror and be like, oh, God, like I was so sickened. And it's funny because I was only sober for 5 months when I went on America's Next Top Model. And that to me was like the crossroads. Like I could go this way and go die, or I could go this way and try to live a new life in an industry that promotes the go die thing. Right. Absolutely. I still did it. I did it. And you know what? I never drank or anything, in my youth. And it's funny because I've never been a big fan of alcohol, but I'll tell you, I relied heavily on weed to keep me from doing other things. Is it a gateway? No, mine, it was more like a gate to stop because now I don't do anything. But yeah, I don't know how that happened because like I said, most of my friends that I did drugs with, died in a Walmart bathroom shooting up and stuff, leaving behind kids. And it's crazy. Most people don't recover. Well, Adrianne, in your experience with her, and listen, here's where, like, I'm just telling you, I'm like you, Adrianne. Once I knew she was back, I was not surprised by this, but I also knew there was nothing I could have done. There was nothing I could have done because at the end of the day, you have to want to help yourself. Now, Adrianne, did she not want to help herself? And why would you think that is? Like, you made a decision. I'm going down this road or that road. You made the decision. You went down the right road. Does a person like that not want to help themselves? I think you live in denial. I mean, from age 12 to 20, I was in counseling, not listening to a fucking word.
not caring, still like, okay, when is this done so I can go find someone with drugs? Because this is stupid. It wasn't until I started wanting something more, probably a year before I quit. And I had a lot of staggering. Like I'd stop for a little bit and then I'd get so sick and then do it again. And then it's funny, like I weaned myself off of heroin. But before that, I was in complete denial. You'd be like, you're a drug addict. I'd be like, you're full of shit. No, I'm not. Nope. Got complete control over everything. I'm fine. I just need this to take the little edge off. I don't even think she was at the point where she wanted to even admit that she was doing anything to take the edge off. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And she was that way for like 10 years, which sucks.
But Adrianne, did something have to happen in your life? I mean, did something happen? Was there a point in time where you said, I've got a problem, I've got to turn my life around? I mean, does it take a trigger? Otherwise,
yeah. Mine was that I stole from my Italian Catholic grandma, born in the 1920s, that raised me. I stole money from her, and then I stole baseball cards from my brother that were like super pricey. I think like thousands and thousands of dollars, and I sold them for like $50 to get a fix.
Adrianne, yeah.
Trust me, I was just like, that's when I looked in the mirror. I'm like, you're disgusting. Like, because I loved them so much. And when it hit me, when I was sober enough to realize, like, I stole $20 out of grandma's purse. And then I took my brother's baseball cards. Thank God it wasn't a lot. And I sold them. And it, like, to see him heartbroken. Yeah. And then she moved out of my parents' house because she's like, I got to get away from this. I'm like, Grandma, like, where are you going? That to me is what was like, shook me awake. And I was like, and it's funny because from that day, even till now, everyone in my family's like, stop buying us shit. I'm like buying my mom jewelry, and I would like shower my grandma with all this stuff. And I'm like, I am making amends until I die. Yeah. Until I die.
Adrianne, how much does this come into play? Because you mirror Joni in many ways. Having addictions, the feel that you're in and being out there in Hollywood. I remember one time she opened up to me, and I'll never forget her telling me this because I felt bad for her. And I felt at this time when she told me about this, I felt like she was just absolutely lost. And she told me one of the things that happened to her was she moved to LA. Okay. And everybody wanted to be Chyna's friend. She was Chyna. She was just coming off her WWE run. Everybody wanted to be her friend. And I remember her telling me it was like she didn't know who her real friends were. She just felt she was being used and abused, and she was paying for all the dinners and she was paying for all the drinks, and they were just milking her of her money and everything. But I have to ask you this, Adrianne, when you're in that type of a situation, do you think, like, is there pressure on her to be that party girl that they all expect her to be? And is that part of getting in deeper and deeper and deeper, where almost you become the person that people expect you to be?
Yes, absolutely. This place is full of nothing but what I like to call Peter Pan shadows and glomerons. Like, people want to live through you, and everyone wants you to pay for everything. And I went through that too for a little bit. Like when I was younger, when I was engaged and stuff, definitely everyone wants you to be at every club and this and that. Being married for me, especially to someone older, that grounded me. I was like, well, I can't stay out past 9. That's not really pursuant to a healthy, happy relationship. I can't go to a nightclub. I'm married. Like, that's a meat market. So that started to save me from this world. The other thing that saved me from this world was I realized I will have very few friends here. I will count them on one hand. I will keep all my friends that I have from growing up, and my family. Thank God all they did was procreate a bunch of Dagos. So I have all these Italians I can be friends with. But this is not a kind place. I've been here over a decade, and every day I'm like, good morning, Babylon. What day will you burn to the ground? Like, I hate it here. It's
But
a
Adrian,
horrible
how are you? My gosh, like, you know, how are you able to cope with it, especially having gone down that road before? You're smack in the middle of it. It's got to be more than willpower.
I think it's introvert, extrovert, right? When I go on a red carpet or I'm in an interview or I'm working, I've got that switch. Boom, I can be the best me, right? When I'm done, everyone's like, well, where have you been the last 2 months? I'm like, in my house playing video games. Like, I don't really socialize that much. And if I do, it's like a lunch with a friend or, you know, a dinner. But when people are like, hey, want to meet up at this bar for drinks? I usually don't do that because I just feel like there's everyone there sniffing out who has what connections, how they can use you. I always say, like, the term definition sociopath, antisocial personality disorder. Every sociopath that's good looking comes to LA, and then they all try to climb and walk all over each other's faces. And I know that, you know, the wrestling industry, it can be very similar, anything in entertainment really. But I lived at the beach for 7-8 years, and I was hard pressed to ever come up into the city unless it was for an event or anything. Like, I guess I kept myself really grounded by, here's my projected image. But if you really got to know me, you see I'm just cleaning my house and sitting on the couch with my cats. Like, you know, get it out of my system once a month at like a paid gig at a nightclub. And even then I'd be in Vegas, like, what time is it? Oh my God, 11? I'm usually in bed. Like, I go to bed at 10. I do. Well, I wake up at 6.
I'm just asking you that because I think it's important. People listening to this show, I mean, you know, that were once addicts and then just, yeah, I mean, again, we both saw her at points in her life where she appeared to be clean and sober. Yeah. But then she just fell in the trap all over again. When was the last time you spoke to her, had interaction with her?
It was right before she started doing all the videos, I'll say. I was like, I really don't think that's a good idea. Like, just don't think it's a good idea. And I knew mentally she wasn't okay. Like, she wasn't making rational decisions if you're still on drugs. Yeah. It broke my heart for her because to me, she's so much more than that, so much more than that. And she was so desperate for affection, real love, you know, stuff like that, that she would get. The counterfeit version was okay for that moment, you know, and that's what that was just counterfeit. Yeah, so maybe it was after my divorce, which was 2011. Yeah. God, you know, which it's funny, she told me not to get married to him on camera because she said he didn't appreciate me. I was like, shh. And then she was at my wedding. She came to my hometown. She hit every bar in my hometown. It's funny because, you know, when she passed, all my childhood friends started sending me pictures like, dude, here's Joni and I at McBrody's bar after like 3 shots. I'm like, oh my gosh, I unleashed all these celebrities on my hometown. Yeah. And it was funny because my friend Allison Dubois, she's a world-renowned medium. She was with Joni most of the night, and they went to the seedy-ass bar that's kind of a gangbanger bar. And she said all these dudes were wanting to arm wrestle her and stuff. And here's where I think Joni's problem is. She's so sweet and trusting, and she doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So they're like, we want to arm wrestle. And she's like, yeah, sure. And my friend Allison can tell she didn't want to. And she just turns to the guy. She's like, Joni doesn't have to prove anything to you. Right. Goodbye. No arm wrestling. And she's like, Joni just looked at her like, thanks. Because she didn't want to arm wrestle. Like, she didn't want to be a spectacle. Yeah. But that's where she fell in, is I think, you know, she wanted to please. So people would suggest things to her, and she had like that childlike innocence to her, which, okay, yeah, sure, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Surround yourself with the wrong people, and that's not good.
And you know what, Adrianne, I think we are all creatures of our environment. The need for love and acceptance. It goes all the way back to your childhood. I'll never forget. We went out to dinner in November, and she was on, her and Anthony, the manager, were on this campaign to get into the WWE Hall of Fame. And I, for the life of me, could not understand it and was almost to the point of yelling at her, "Are you nuts? Like, first of all, it's a fictitious Hall of Fame. Second of all, one guy, Vince McMahon, makes the decision." I said, and I looked at her, I said, "Joni, with everything you've accomplished in your life and who you are, you mean to tell me you need the approval of Vince McMahon, and that's going to make you feel better?" But Adrianne, I could not understand. Yes, she did. That was all part of being loved and being accepted, and the boss giving her a boy. All that stuff was so important to her because I assume, going back to her parents, this is something she longed for her entire life. And then especially when she thinks she has it and then it's taken away. And like you said, when she loses the job, which she loves, and then that's taken away, you're constantly looking for that. And I guess when you don't get it, there has to be some kind of a breaking point.
That was her demise, if you ask me, is she didn't find the right people to love her enough. And then the people who wanted to love her, at those times she was too lost to accept it and feel it. Here and there, I know she felt it with me. I know she did, because I was the one that was like, and that would be our last drink for the night, don't you think? You know, like everyone else is like, party, let's go. And I'm like, let's not go to the nightclub. Want to eat? Want to maybe put food in there? You know? Yeah. But that's what sucked is, you know, she had been hurt so much. I think it was hard for her to tell what was real and what was not. And I wonder if she never had wrestling, if she could have just been normal and somewhere else, if she would be some amazing light, you know, still shining in life. This is not for the faint of heart, this career, right? And it destroys the best of us. Like, you just watch person after person fall or say they haven't fallen. I mean, like, look at poor Charlie Sheen. That's been since the 80s. Yeah. He has been struggling. Or Robert Downey Jr. Like, he's finally like, hey, I've been sober for pretty much 5 minutes out of the whole span of my life, but I'm here. I'm okay. Yeah. It's difficult. It's full of rejection and just loneliness. And like I said, not knowing people's intentions. Like, I'll sit there and I'll slowly think I'm vetting someone out. And 4 months into what I think is like a beautiful blossoming relationship. Yeah, I want to be a singer. So who do you know? How can you get me? I'm like, why does it always have to be that?
And especially somebody like her. Like you said, I mean, she played this persona on TV. And unless you knew her, you would never know the kindest of hearts. And what will you remember the most? I mean, when it comes to Joni.
Joni is a pussycat. Always has been, always will be. It breaks my heart that I had to meet her a few years after she, you know, started falling off the wagon. But the moments that I remember about her is how much she cared about me, how much she cared about life choices I was making. We're always so good at giving advice and not taking it. So she was watching me make mistakes in my life, and she's like, take it from someone who's had a lot of shitty relationships. This one's not going to work out for you. I'm like, but I wanted to, and I love him. And she's like, I don't think it's going to work out for you. Like, she tried to save me. I tried to save her. Yeah. But just her gentleness, that innocence, that no matter what befell her, she still had that trusting little kid that still got to live on in her beautiful eyes, her eye color. Boom. She had beautiful eyes. Yeah. But that and her obsession with always grabbing my boobs and me hers.
The thing that I'll always remember, and I'll remember everything. I mean, she will forever live on in my heart. I will never forget about her. But the thing that I will remember the most, that Adrianne, I wouldn't have dare said to her if she was here, because I would have been afraid of the ramifications. But I could say it now. The female Herman Munster laugh. When Joni laughed, it could be nobody. It was nobody else but Joni. You could not think that laugh was coming from anybody else, and you just loved to hear it. And I think she loved for you to hear it.
Yeah, it's funny. At my wedding, we had it at a Grand Palace Theater, very Phantom of the Opera. And there was an old, like 100-year-old pipe organ where the pipes went all the way up to the ceiling. And I'll never forget, like, this beautiful organ music is like going through, and my whole family's like, "Who, you have an organist?" I'm like, "No." And we go in there, and there's Joni, and she stands up, and my dad was like, "China, was that you?" And she just threw her head back and did that laugh. And I was like, okay, because she was a very accomplished musician. I couldn't believe that she busted out on the organ. And it was funny because the owner of the place was like, do I get mad or do I just let these celebrities do whatever they want here? No, I mean, that to me was the most touching of memories that I have with her, is all the memories that my family has with her from her being in my hometown.
Yeah. Well, Adrianne, man, you don't know how much I appreciate, you coming on and talking about her. I mean, the thing that broke me apart, one of the wrestlers called me, it must have been about 10 o'clock at night, and he broke the news to me. And, Adrianne, I stayed away from my computer for hours because I did not want confirmation. I'm thinking to myself, maybe he made a mistake, because I knew the second I went on my computer, I was going to see it. And finally, I went online, and the thing that broke me down is the outpouring of love from her fans.
I wish she could be here to see that.
I was saying to myself, Adrianne, she did not have a clue. She could not have known how loved she was, because if she knew, there's no way she could have went down that road. And it's like, I'm looking at, she wanted the acceptance from the WWE Hall of Fame, from the one man, her old boss. And I'm reading hundreds and thousands of people she never met in her life. Every country on the planet that adored and loved her. And I'm reading this stuff and I'm saying she did not have a clue. If she knew this, that's all that would have mattered to her. That's it.
I know. It killed me. It killed me because I found out on my Facebook fan page, because it was just a billion people all at once. Dude, you're the first person I thought of. You're the first person I thought. I'm like, oh man, it can't be. And then I found your podcast about her because I was just, I don't know, coping, trying to find something that was deeper than just Ninth Wonder and this and that and surreal. I wanted something more, and I stumbled on your podcast.
Yeah, she was a pioneer. If I would have read that one more time, I'm like, are you seriously?
From the very people that wouldn't even mention her existence forever, it drove me crazy. It's funny because I even posted, I was like, okay, so she passes away, and her ex-fiance and the woman that like triangulated in their relationship have something to say. If you want to honor her, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, thank you.
Shut up.
Very much. Tthank you.
Don't say anything.
Exactly. Don't say anything, or say, you know what? We really handled that in a shitty way.
Yeah, something, or just have the organization say it. But you shut up.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
be
Adrian,
quiet.
from what I understand, because I got an email from Anthony yesterday, I think there's supposed to be like a big memorial, big celebration out your way. I think sometime in June.
Okay.
I hope I get to meet you at that.
I've been waiting because I'm like, is there a funeral?
Yeah,
Is there a memorial? Like, what is happening? I've been checking up all the time, and knowing that she was distant from her family and stuff, I'm like, this is horrible. Like, when do we get to memorialize her?
I think there's going to be an announcement on Monday, and I think the date was June 5th. So I look forward to meeting you there, Adrian. And this meant so much to me, you coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no, it's nice to be able to talk to someone who knew her. Most of the people that I was talking to met her a few times or met her at my wedding and stuff like that. But, it's been messed up. I'm totally crushed about it. I hate it for her. And, she definitely left behind a legacy. And like you said, who cares about the fictitious Hall of Fame? Yeah. That woman, she was a powerhouse. Damn, and then she was also a kitten. So.
Yeah, she was. Well, Adrian, anything you're doing now that you'd like to share with us where we could see you next time? Or
It's really funny because when, I heard about Joni, I just decided that I want to do personal training. And, the first thing I thought of was I wrestled her like an idiot and she beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, that could be asking for trouble. That could be
I
asking
was like,
for trouble.
know your strength, Joni. It's like my face is smashed to the floor. I'm like bruised for like a week. She's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, girl. Like she was like an alley-oop slam. And the carpet had no foam underneath it, so I'm like crushed. Thank God I was young. Yeah. But I'm like, girl. But she was one of the first people I thought about, when I was like, okay, I think I want to start personal training, maybe making some videos and stuff like that. And it's just she's who I thought of. So that's probably where you're going to see me next. Is I'm just going to head down the fitness alley so I can keep this tight as I head towards my 40s.
Well, you still got a way to go.
Yeah, I'm turned 34 this year, but every woman on the planet knows once you hit 30, it's like putter, putter, putter. Your engine starts going on. You're like, whoa. But I mean, I've always been into fitness and stuff. And that was one of the reasons, I admired her and told her that when we first met. I was like, dude, look at your quads. Like just definition, just crazy.
Oh God. Yeah. So, if you would ever saw her in a gym, you wouldn't have believed your own eyes. It was a sight to see. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
she's the only chick that ever made me feel normal because I'm 5'11". I believe she was like 5'10". Yeah. And I was like, oh, hey.
Well, Adrianne, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Cool. Thank you.
You coach me every weekend earlier in the weekend feature because there's anybody out there who else like Miss Chantal. Is